Okay, so we're going to make our L angle in here. And what are we going to learn in this lesson? What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing extrude. And when you look at a drawing like this, think about what your base feature is going to be. The base feature in this is going to be an extrude off of this drawing. We could do this a couple different ways. We could actually create the enclosed geometry in a sketch format and just extrude that out 10 inches that you see over here. Or, as an introduction to this, we're going to use a thin extrude. Thin extrude allows us just to create a couple different lines, put them together with a fillet in the middle or whatever you have in regard to lines and arcs you want to put together. And then we're going to add a thickness to it as part of the feature rather than doing that in a sketch environment. That's called the thin extrude. Once we do that, after we do our base extrude in here, we're going to put in our edge fillet, which is going to be in each one of these corners over here, as we see in an isometric view. Then we're going to put in our bottom hole. So we're going to put in initially a hole in here. As it says over here, all holes are going to be concentric, or at least this first hole is going to be concentric to that round over here. That helps define where that hole location is going to be. It's going to be 0.19 inches in diameter. Then we're going to put in an array in a way, kind of like what you learned in AutoCAD, but this is going to be a linear feature. And we're going to put those holes in here. We're going to have 7 altogether with a 1/2 inch spacing between them. And then we're going to put a feature mirror in here to mirror these holes on the left side to the ones on the right side. So these are going to get mirrored over here to this side over here on the right side as we look at it from the front. And we're going to do something a little bit different but similar on the back view over here. So in this back face over here, we're also going to be putting in a hole or a circle that's going to define where that hole is going to be. Still going to have a diameter of about 0.19 inches. And then we're going to go ahead and, still within that sketch environment, create another circle over here. So we're going to do that by a mirror. We're going to take a center line in here and mirror this circle over here to that side. And then we're going to put in a slot tool. A slot tool is going to be coincident or vertical to a midpoint of one of these circles over here. And this guy is defined by kind of redundant in here. It's kind of defined by the two of these dimensions in here. This dimension implies that we're looking at the length and width of that slot. So the width of the slot is going to be 0.19, which is also the diameter of these holes. So it's going to be the same hole size that you see in here. But between this line here, that line down there is going to be 0.19, and it's going to be 2.19 from one edge of the circle to the other. This dimension in here is similar to that. It's talking about just center to center rather than the maximum distance of that hole. That's going to be the center to center distance of that slot. So let's go and do this. To start with, we're going to look at the alloy steel as our material, and we're going to go ahead and sketch on the right plane. So let's go over here and open up our template file. I'm going to go to New. This is what template files look like in SolidWorks. Can't do that in the CAD lab, so you're going to have to open up your part template file as a part file. But I'm looking at inch pound seconds, so I'm going to double click on that. And we're going to go to the right plane, go to sketch. We're going to pick a line for a sketch. We're going to start at the origin, sketch a line out, exaggerate that a little bit. And we're going to take both of those lines together and we're going to make those equal. One thing to note about these two black lines is the end points of the lines are blue. So which means you have that flexibility. The lines themselves cannot move. If you try to move that left or right, won't do it. The only thing that's blue in here and underdefined, not undefined, or not fully defined, but underdefined, that's a test question, is going to be the endpoints of those lines. So let's put a dimension in there, 0.7 in this guy. That's going to make this one over here the same, because they're equal. So now everything's black, and they cannot move. We're going to put a fillet in here. I believe when we put our fillet in here, it's going to give us an error. And what it's saying is because we have an equal length relationship in here, that it might goof that relationship up. But because we're taking a portion of it off of that line and this line too, the same amount off of each line, we're going to be okay. So we're going to go to yes in this. And that really kind of has more of an impact on a midpoint relationship if you're going around like a square, but we're going to cover that in a different video. So yes, it's the appropriate answer in here. We're going to type in 0.125 and go to green check mark. So now we're going to go to extrude. So we're going to go to features, green check mark again for sketch fillet. We're going to go to extruded boss base. It knows right away that we have in here a thin feature, because if we don't have enclosed geometry, it's going to assume we want to add thickness to the lines in here. So it's going to add thickness to the outside, but if you look at our drawing in here, what we really want to do is we want to add thickness to the inside. All of our dimensions are on the outside, especially that radius dimension. We want to make sure we have it on the inside, not the outside. So we're going to go down here to thin feature. It's selected by default. It's got a great check mark in there. We're going to change the direction in that. We're going to put it on the inside. So that provides a thickness, and the distance right now is 0.1 inches, 100 thousandths of an inch. But if we go up to blind, what we want to do is we want to make that mid-plane, because when we go ahead and mirror these items over, and we're going to do our feature mirror, we want to make sure that we have a plane in the middle of this in order to do that, so we don't have to add that reference geometry in later. So we're going to go mid-plane. We're going to make that 10 inches. And we're going to extrude that out, go to the green check mark. We didn't specify our material. We probably should do that first. But we're going to go to Add Material right now. We're going to still stay with steel. Scroll down to Alloy Steel. We're going to go and apply it and close it. You notice that kind of the color of the material that we have in here changed a little bit too in our modeling area. And then Extrude, we're just going to call this our base Extrude. And again, the justification for renaming our features in here is for the next people who might be coming along, and they, if you have a lot of features in here, it's helpful to organize these features and to rename things too, in order for people to be able to find their way around. So with that said, let's go ahead and go and evaluate this. If we go to Evaluate, not Measure, oops, sorry about that, but Mask Properties, let's go ahead and close our Measure dialog box here. Mask Properties, we want to go to Options in here. And let's go ahead and reselect that. Sometimes you have to select that a second time. We're going to go to Options in here. We're going to use Custom Settings. We're going to bring that up to 4. We're going to take our slider up here for the highest accuracy. We're going to go to OK. And now we're going to, we should be looking at our mass of, says 0.3527. So is that correct? It is not. Our mass should be 0.2169. So what did we do? I think what we did is we made this a little bit too thick. It kind of looks that way. So if you were to click on this and take a look at that dimension that drives that, I think it's that guy over here. Kind of hard to select, but we can go over here to our base Extrude. We're going to go ahead and edit that feature. I think the thickness in here should be 0.06. So let's go ahead and do that. Makes it a little bit thinner. And let's go back to our mask properties and take a look at that. And yes, now we have 0.2169. And the center of the mass is 0.2030. Both in the Y and the Z axis, and that matches our drawing. Okay, so let's close this out for now. Let's go ahead and put in the rest of this. Let's put in our fillets. So this is going to be a feature fillet. We're going to go up to Features, go over here to Fillet, and I believe the fillet value in here is going to be, it says over here 0.25 for all rounds. So it's a fillet or a round. Sometimes that's the same word, but rounds typically refer to the outside, whereas a fillet might refer to the inside. So we're going to call that a round, so it's going to be 1/4 of an inch. But the feature in SolidWorks is going to be a fillet, so either way. So we're going to go ahead and select on a couple different edges in here. We're going to go ahead and select on that edge. You want to make sure you get your preview. And put the right value in there, 0.125. We're going to go ahead and select on this edge, do the same thing. And these two edges back here, that guy and that guy. The edge is a little bit hard to select because it's so small. If you go to the green check mark, that should wrap that up. Now I feel pretty confident about that. Uh-oh. I shouldn't feel confident about it because I think our fillet is not 1/8 of an inch, but it's 1/4 of an inch. So what do? We don't have to reselect it. We can just go ahead and type in the correct value in there and go to the green check mark. Now I feel confident about that. So we're going to put in our holes next, and then we're going to take our mask properties just to double check. So to start that, and we're going to call this the same thing that our drawing calls it. It's calling it the edge fillet. So we're going to call that edge and then fillet. Next item in here is going to be some holes. We're going to put in one hole first. We're going to go to Sketch, go to Circle. Remember the value of that circle is going to be the dimension on that for a diameter. It's going to be 0.19. I exaggerated that a little bit. Didn't try to get even close to where the concentric relationship is down here. Kind of put it off to the side because we want to see that move if we want to do that. And then 0.19 is going to be the diameter on that. So to make that black so it cannot move, it's got a lot of flexibility in that surface. We're going to go ahead and select the edge of that circle, the edge of that edge over here, and we're going to make that concentric. Now, we could try to make that co-radial. That's another option in here. What's it going to do? Ain't going to like. There's no way we can make that co-radial because there are different radiuses. But we could do that if we took that 0.19 inch dimension off of that. So that's not really what we want to do. Control-Z will take us back. And then we're going to make that concentric and call that done. So we're going to go to Features, extruded cut through a wall might be a good choice here. Go to the green check mark, and now we have that hole in place. So now let's do a linear feature pattern. What we want to do is go up here to features. It's a feature that does not rely on any sketches. We're going to go to linear pattern up here. And what we want to do is we want to begin, kind of look at the top, work our way down. What it's asking for up here is going to be a direction. So we're going to go ahead and then make a pattern off to the right here. So if we go ahead and click on this edge or this edge up here for a direction, it'll allow us to do that. It's got that selection box open. When the selection box is open and light blue, it's looking for a selection in here. It's looking for a selection out in the graphics area. So for this one, sometimes it comes with an arrow on it, which is way over here for some reason. But we can take that arrow and change the direction on that by clicking on the arrow. Or we can do that over here too. But let's go ahead and select a feature in here to show us, to allow us, to see something visual in here so we can see the preview. So what we want down here, the next item down here is spacing and instances. Instances are going to be 7. That includes the original one, so we want 7 total. So we want that, and look, it's already selected that. And the spacing is going to be 0.5. So now we're going to skip direction 2. Direction 2, you might want to select that if you want to do something that would resemble like a checkerboard, where we're going off in a kind of like a matrix in 2 different directions. We're not going to worry about that, so we're not going to select anything in that box. But in this area, we want features and faces. 2 ways to select this. We can go ahead and open this up and go ahead and pick our cut extrude, which we're going to rename here in just a minute. Or we can come in here and actually select a face or a surface in here that would be unique to that feature, and it selects that feature there too. So it's selected a cut extrude 1 down here. And if you like the way that looks, we can go to the green check mark, but to show you what the gray arrow does, click on the gray arrow, it goes in the opposite direction. We can also reverse that direction up here too and put that into place. This is another way of doing this too. We can go up here and actually change that. We want to make that 0.6. We can do that up here too. It's a kind of a shortcut menu that's right next to your cursor. You might find that convenient too. So a lot of ways to do the same thing. So we're going to go to the green check mark. So what's this hole called? This hole on the drawing, if we bring our drawing back in here, hole's called a bottom hole, and then we're going to put a pattern in here too. So we're going to call our cut extrude. Slowly clicking out, we're going to call that our bottom hole. Then we're going to borrow that word, Control C for copy. We're going to call this our bottom hole pattern. So get rid of that L, Control V, space, and get rid of the 1, and that puts that into place. So now we're going to mirror that over to the other side. So we're going to go back up to features. Again, it's another feature that doesn't rely on a sketch. We're not going to go to shell, but the neighbor next door to it is called mirror. And the first thing it's asking for here is our mirror, face, or plane. What we want to do is choose the right plane that we already have in place. Features to mirror. We can click on any of these faces in here that would be unique to that pattern that we did. And if we did that, if we clicked on that, it's going to go ahead and show that mirror over there. If we select it again, it's going to take that out. And if we select this hole in here, the question is it going to select that hole only, or is it going to select the pattern? And it selects that hole. So you got to be careful about what you select. Another way to do that, if we right click on this, we can go ahead and delete the selection in that light blue box and just come down here to the bottom hole pattern and the feature flyout, and it'll do the same thing. So if we go to the green check mark, now we have those in place. So let's check our mass properties. So I think we're done with that. We're going to go to evaluate mass properties. And now we're looking at the mass of being 2093, 0.2093. And what do we have over here? Same thing, 0.2093. It's going to be off in the Y and the Z axis only because it's symmetrical about the X, because we have that right plane in the middle. So it's going to be 2079 and 1946. And we have 2079 and 1946 over there too. We're going to go ahead and close that, and we'll go and move on to the next step. Okay, so next are our back holes. Let's go ahead and take this mirror and let's go ahead and rename that. So this is going to be our bottom hole pattern mirror. Just to keep things straight. Okay, so now we're going to put in our back holes. So we're going to do something, we're going to, achieve kind of the same results, but this time we're going to do it within the sketch environment. We're going to make that normal too by doing a Control A, and we're going to go ahead and put a sketch on that surface, circle, and we're going to make that also 0.19 inches. We could actually link these dimensions, but I'm going to save that for a different video. So we can take that circle and that edge, just like we did before. We're going to make that concentric, makes that fully defined. And now we're going to put in a center line. We're going to go ahead and choose the origin down here or an edge. I'm going to take that center line and sketch it off your model. Don't connect it to the model itself, but take it off the model. It becomes more visible and easy to select. So we're going to take that hole, that circle that represents that hole, and select that line in here. We're just going to jump up here to mirror entities and puts it on the other side. Next thing is going to be our center point straight slot. You're going to find that up here on your sketch tab. And there's a couple different choices in here. You might start with straight slot, but center point straight slot will allow us to actually select that center line that we have in here and sketch that slot out. So I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit and bring that out. So the first thing you do is you're going to provide the length of that slot. If you remember our drawing, it showed the length and the width of that. So we're going to do the length of the slot first, the width second. And then you're going to get something like this. So now we need to put the dimensions on that. We can dimension the center line in here. If you want to do that, it's going to be 2 inches. But what provides you with a little bit more flexibility is to be able to dimension between that arc and this arc. And we're going to put that in and we're going to make that 2. But the reason you want to do that is with this dimension in here. And if we go to the leader option in here, we have the option of making it, right now it's at the center with both of the sides. So if you do minimum on one side, minimum on the other side, now we completely clear the circles on either side, or we can make a maximum and maximum, which is going to give us that value in there. So we're going to go back and we're going to go ahead and click on that. We're going to make that center. So go back to leader tab. We're going to make that center. We're going to make this center too. And go to the green check mark. So remember that maximum dimension should be 2.19. It's because we haven't defined this other dimension in here, which is going to be this. We're going to make that 0.19, which also is the diameter of the circle. As an alternative to that, we could actually do the arc itself. Now, SolidWorks, and this trips people up a lot. SolidWorks, if you're going to try to dimension an arc, not a complete circle, it's going to think radius. So if you look at the value next to that smart dimension, it says R.095. It's going to be the radius, and we're going to go ahead and drop that into place and go to the green check mark there too. But we can click on that, again go back to leaders and change that back to diameter. And if we do that, that kind of matches the circles in there. So you have to take that extra step if you want to do that. The last thing we need to do, it's still blue, it's not fully defined, we can't move it back and forth, but we can move it up and down. We are going to take this center line in here, and you'll notice that when we select that, it kind of selects the whole sketch entity, which is the slot tool. It doesn't just select that center line in there, but it's thinking the center line when we select that. And we're going to go ahead and select the midpoint of any of these circles with the control key depressed. And now we're going to go ahead and provide a coincident relationship. If that were just a line, I think just a vertical relationship or a horizontal relationship would have sufficed. Coincident, sometimes coincident means collinear or coplanar. Doesn't always mean that they're actually on top of each other, as it implies. But in this situation, we're going to pick coincident and go to the green check mark. So now everything's black, it's fully defined. Our sketch down here, sketch 3, if we rebuild that, that's fully defined. That negative sign has gone out of that. So now that we rebuilt it and incorporated that into our feature manager tree, you notice that sketch is gray, which means it's visible. Everything in here is visible if it's got some color to it. And because that's got a blue color to it as opposed to the other sketches in here, which have a thin black line, has no color to it, this means it's showing here too. If you don't want that sketch to show, right click on it, you can go down here to hide. Oop, it's over here. So we can go to hide it, and it takes it out of there and makes that thin black line. If we want it to show again, maybe we want to show it this time, we're going to tell it to show by going to that eyeball one more time. So we're going to take that sketch, select it, go to features, extruded cut. We're going to go through a wall or a blind. Blind will go to the thickness of that feature, which is not 1/10 of an inch, should be 0.06 inches. So let's just do through a wall. We're going to go to the green check mark. And now let's check our mass properties. Now we do have in that, the sketch is still showing in here because you told it to show. We're going to right click in that sketch, we're going to tell it to hide, so we don't want to see that sketch anymore. And we're going to rename this to our back holes. Okay, this is the moment of truth. Did we waste more time trying to fix this model, or is it fixed from the very beginning? We'll know that as soon as we find our mass properties. So we're going to go to evaluate, go to mass properties. All the settings that we have in there before are still there. So let's go ahead and bring our drawing back in and see what we have. The mass should be 0.2016, which it is. Center mass is going to be 0.1986 on the Y and 0.2010 on the Z, which it is. So the nice thing about mass properties, using the mass properties, is it gives you the capacity to know that right away that you've made this right. And if you made an error in there, it's going to show up in the mass properties typically. So now that's correct. So what did we cover here? What did we cover here? So initially with our base extrude, we used a thin extrude. We provided a thickness to our lines and arcs that we had in there, as well as the length of that. So it's a big time saver. If all you need to do is add thickness to it, you don't have to add all that extra sketch geometry in there. Put our sketch fillet in there, our feature fillet. That's pretty straightforward. I think you know how to do that. The bottom hole. We created the hole, and then we created the pattern of that hole, and then we mirrored that over to the other side. So we did that all, except for the original hole, we did that all within the feature environment. Now with the back holes, we did this all in the sketch environment. We put all of our sketch elements together, including a mirror sketch from one side to the other. We put all that together into a sketch and finally did that as an extrude.